بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله حمد الشاكرين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد طب القلوب ودوائها ونور الأبصار وضيائها وعافية الأبدان وشفائها وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد كلما ذكرك الذاكرون وغفل عن ذكرك الغافلون. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to today's live stream concerning Iran striking Tel Aviv, and of course red lines crossed. Iran strikes Tel Aviv and we have Trump fumbling and the US inches toward war. So as we stand today, there is much happening, and of course previously I had covered a clean break, a new strategy for securing the realm. This was covered in one of the previous live streams, and that was regarding a policy document that was prepared in 1996 by a study group led by Richard Pearl for Benjamin Netanyahu, who is of course known as the Prime Minister of the entity. And the report explained a new approach to solving Israel's security problems in the Middle East. What was mentioned in that paper was preemptive strikes on Iran by Israel as a part of a coordinated attempt to secure its northern border and justify further incursions into Syria and Lebanon. As we see today, what is referred to as Israel has made incursions into Syria and have also bombed southern Lebanon. Similarly, what was mentioned in that report is Syria challenges Israel on Lebanese soil. So remember, Syria dominated Lebanon and Lebanese politics for a while. And what the paper stated, an effective approach and one with which America can sympathize would be if Israel seized the strategic initiative along its northern borders by engaging Hezbollah, Syria and Iran as the principal agents of aggression in Lebanon. And that is what has occurred. So that was with regard to the long-term plan that was drawn up for Benjamin Netanyahu in 1996, which was regarding Syria. Today, what I want to present is what was prepared with regard to Iran. So, which way to Persia, options for new American strategy towards Iran. What is this? This is a 2009 Brookings Institution paper. Now, someone in the comments, they mentioned read Protocols of the Elders of Zion, of the learned Elders of Zion. I would not advise you to utilize such texts as it only discredits your claims. Let's utilize that which is official from governments as opposed to that which may have been discredited by academia. And even though when you read the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, it's similar to the Confessions of a British Spy written in the Ottoman times. I would advise people to actually read documents and strategic plans that have been formulated by government officials. So in this case scenario, this 2009 Brookings Institution paper lays out a US strategy menu for Iran. Everything from diplomacy to full-scale military strikes. Now, the paper is titled Which Path to Persia? It explores how Washington might engage pressure or even topple the Iranian regime. It's not a policy, it's a playbook mapping out the risks, rewards and realities of each option. Now, some people, they say, a lot of your detractors keep saying you brush Iran's crimes under the carpet and don't place enough emphasis on them. The simple response to that is that our war, our long-term war of attrition is with Israel. We are enemies of the Zionist entity. We are at war with the Zionist entity as a Muslim Ummah. Within the Muslim Ummah, we have schism and schismatics amongst us. There is, of course, dissension, disagreement amongst many nations. And within those nations, there is discord. We do not align ourselves with any side when it comes to the common objective, which is the dismantling of the enemy state. Currently, as we speak, it's essential on all the Muslims to unite to dismantle the Zionist entity. So now this paper has in total nine. It explores 9 options for the American government. There are diplomatic means, military means, regime change, and containment. So remember, as we speak, many Arabs have been contained. Arabs have been contained as a whole in terms of their teeth have been removed, so they cannot perform jihad in the way of Allah. Their borders have been blocked, so mujahideen cannot enter certain countries. When it is desirable for the globalists to have fighters enter any country, those borders are opened up. But when it is undesirable, borders are closed. So the Arabs have been contained largely, as we see now, as we observe that people cannot enter Gaza because of the regime of Abdul Fattah al-Sisi and the King of Jordan. And those Arab countries that surround Gaza, they will not permit for any mujahideen to enter Palestine or occupied Palestine in order to carry out their obligations. So that is containment. But the strategic goals were laid out with 9 potential meaning it's a playbook that gives 9 potential case scenarios. The diplomatic would be persuading Iran with an offer. Now, so many people are confused with regard to the politics of Donald Trump. But what they do not realize is that strategy and strategic goal plans are written prior for presidents. So we have diplomatic means like persuading Iran with an offer or engaging diplomatically with Iran. So persuading Iran with an offer or engaging diplomatically with Iran. This is 2 options which fall under diplomacy. Then you have the military options. Now, listen very carefully with regard to the military options. The military options is that a US ground invasion, also US airstrikes, also, which is number 5, leave it to BIBI, meaning leave it to Benjamin Netanyahu, allowing or encouraging an Israeli military strike. This is option number 5. Then we have regime change, which is options 6, 7, and 8. For instance, option number 6 is supporting a popular uprising. Option number 7, supporting Iranian minority and opposition groups. And Option number 8, supporting a military move against the regime. And option number 9 is containment. And that is what has been happening since 1979. Ever since 1979 and the Iranian Revolution, Iran has faced containment, sanctions. Iran has been fighting a war of attrition against its enemies ever since 1979. Like many other states, like North Korea, for instance, and other states, what they refer to as rogue states, and later were referred to as states which are a part of the axis of evil. Now, as we observe these 9 options, currently as we speak, leave it to BIBI is being carried out. So currently it's left to BIBI. BIBI is Benjamin Netanyahu, allowing or encouraging an Israeli military strike. That is what has occurred. But what is left on the table for now is supporting a popular uprising, and BIBI attempted to encourage the Iranian people to carry out an uprising, or supporting Iranian minority and opposition groups, or supporting a military move against the regime. From within, of course, BIBI has attempted, meaning Netanyahu, has attempted to encourage that and incite that within Iran. But in the past few days, what we have observed is that Iran has united as a nation, and the opposite effect is actually happening. And we have observed that Tel Aviv is being obliterated. The defense shields are down, what they refer to as the Iron Dome. The Iron Dome is not functioning. It's committing suicide, in fact. The missiles are falling onto Tel Aviv. Their own missiles are falling to Tel Aviv. There is the malfunctioning of the Iron Dome, as well as the Jews in Israel fighting amongst themselves for shelters. So those who are entering bomb shelters, many of them are not permitting fellow Jews to enter the bomb shelters. They are barring fellow citizens as well as the slaves that they keep in. Remember, the UAE and what they refer to as Israel are very similar in that regard. They keep a slave population. So the slaves that they keep in that country, they do not allow them to enter the bomb shelters. They even assault Hindus who attempt to join their worship. So there are Hindus who are attempting to unite with the Zionist entity, but the Zionist Jews are not so fond of the Hindu people because they are, of course, a racist group. There is a racist occupation. So this paper, which is known as Which Way to Persia and Options for a New American Strategy Towards Iran, what is mentioned in this paper is that the paper intentionally does not pander to typical tropes of political diplomacy or bureaucracy in presenting its proposals. What it mentions, in fact, is the central purpose of this monograph is to try to present the most important policy opinions available to the United States to craft a new strategy toward Iran, and to do so in a dispassionate, objective fashion. So what they write is, we have attempted to portray each option in its naked glory without the gloss of advocacy. Each of us believes that some of the options are better than the others, but we all recognize that none are perfect and all have more risks and costs than guaranteed benefits. Now that makes sense, that why they would go, why Donald Trump is fumbling, why Donald Trump is unable to stick with one policy, because he has clearly the policy makers at the top, those who control finance, are actually the policy makers. Even in this country of the UK, when we vote in the Labour or Conservative, those parties are only voted in for how the budget should be spent. So they will differ on the budget, how much will be placed towards the council and how much will be placed towards potholes on the road and how much will be placed in this. The two parties may differ on this, but the actual people who control policy, the policy makers, are a part of the deep state. Those people who write the policy are making that policy for Donald Trump. So within those 9 options, Donald Trump is moving between those various options. And what this paper concedes is that there is no consensus on approaches to what they refer to as the Iran problem, what is referred to as Iran problem. Now, why Iran is a problem for them, and not only Iran, there are possibly other states that pose a problem, is that for Israel to dominate the region, it cannot have Arab states or a Persian state within close proximity that can deter Israel from its plans to expand, or its plans to take more land grabbing, or to exterminate different peoples of that region. So Iran poses a problem. And what they state, nor is there a unified attitude amongst the American population. The American public have to be convinced of the chosen approach, or at least taught to tolerate it. So what is made very clear is that the American people must be made to tolerate the option that Donald Trump will make in the coming days, as well as accepting or being convinced of the approach that the United States of America will take. So that is where the role of propaganda is important, that we must understand that the role of propaganda is that the news channels, they carry out a blockage of news. So as we see now that Iran is successful, and remember, what they refer to as Israel has never engaged with a state proper, with a real military, for more than 50 years, since it engaged with Syria and Egypt in 1973. The Palestinians have been contained, and the IDF, their terrorist soldiers, have only ever been killing and sniping young children until Hamas developed its capabilities post 2005. So after the first Intifada in 1987, and throughout the 1990s, Hamas did not develop its capabilities. Much of its capabilities were developed due to the enhanced presence of Iranian militias in the region. And that is what people need to understand. Today, Hamas is able to develop its projectiles, its rocket launchers, make its own weapons, because of the intelligence that was passed through Damascus and the chain of supply from Iran into Syria, passing into the Lebanon. That is how the Palestinian groups developed their resistance capabilities. That is very important for people to understand. Even in the 1990s and the early 2000s, Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, he would visit Damascus during that time, meeting many of the ulama in Damascus in the early 2000s and in the late 1990s. So when Iran is referred to as a problem in the region, it is because of its positioning towards what is referred to as Israel and the Jewish supremacy. So this Jewish supremacy intends to take land, as it has done in southern Syria, and it intends to expand. So what is mentioned in the paper is one of the many failings of the current Iran debate is that proponents of different perspectives are often arguing about apples and oranges, comparing policies meant to achieve very different goals, as if they were meant to achieve the same ends, or starting from assumptions as if everyone were in complete agreement about these assumptions. So the fact is that there is no complete consensus on policy. Part of the problem is that there is no national consensus, and one of President Obama's tasks, remember this paper was formulated during the presidency of Obama. Tasks in forging a new strategy toward Iran will be to build such a consensus, or at least achieve a national tolerance for his preferred course. There is no national tolerance. As we speak, the United States of America, the people of the United States of America, they have no tolerance of war. So there is no tolerance of war, and there is no national consensus. In fact, the American public is sick and tired of war. Ever since the invasion of Afghanistan in 2001, late 2001, and then the invasion of Iraq in 2003, and of course the result of that was chaotic. It led to national debt. As we speak, the United States of America has over 30 trillion in debt, around 36 trillion in debt, and the UK has over 2 trillion in debt, and the debt grows, and then taxes increase, and the taxpayers' money is being utilized in the black budget to fund war and kill people abroad, all for the sake of Jewish supremacism. This is what people need to understand. That Western capability, Western weapons are being utilized to keep afloat Jewish supremacism in the region. This is what Nigel Farage, the far right, will not tell you. All those supporters of Nigel Farage in the UK, listen, that you in your policies are supporting Jewish supremacism through Western weapons, weapons that are made by the RAF, by British arms. Those weapons are then utilized in the Middle East and other regions, not to contain Muslims, but to make a Jewish supremacism that deems itself more supreme to the Goyim, the non-Jew, and follows the teaching of the Talmud, which contains Jewish supremacism. So, what is mentioned in this paper also with regard to the Israeli attacks is that, in short, America forecasted a high probability that Israel would eventually strike Iran, but never consolidated whether it would create opportunity or risk for America in the region. So there's something that needs to be assessed. They knew that Netanyahu, remember Netanyahu has a Rebbe who passed away in New York, New York being the capital of Jewish supremacist finance in the world today. This Rebbe supported a messianic worldview, which is adopted by Benjamin Netanyahu. Only recently, the president or the prime minister of Argentina, the leader of Argentina, he visited. Now, he's supposedly Roman Catholic, but he visited Netanyahu on the 10th of June, and he presented a picture of the Rebbe to Netanyahu. Why? Because the current leader of Argentina is a devotee of the same messianic Rebbe that Netanyahu is a devotee, and they both have an apocalyptic worldview which believes that Israel must launch a major war in the region to exterminate its enemies and establish a super Jewish state in the region that expands from the Euphrates to the River Nile. This is why there is meddling of the Zionist presence in the Euphrates. There is meddling of the Zionist presence within the Middle East of the Euphrates River. So, what this paper states, in short, there is considerable, but remember that what the paper states is that does this create opportunity or risk for America in the region? What we have to realize, and what the Americans must realize, those Americans who listen to this and others, is that this will actually create risk for the United States of America. They must not underestimate the capabilities, the confidence, the resilience of the Iranian people, the Persian people, as a nation and a civilization. So it will actually create risk for United States of America personnel, and this is why Starmer needs to realize that he is only risking sons of the British Isles by sending them to the Middle East to their deaths. So, what the paper states, in short, there is considerable reason to believe that under the right or wrong set of circumstances, Israel would launch an attack, and that has happened. Principally airstrikes, but possibly backed by special forces operations. Now, Netanyahu has admitted that there has been American help in their strikes to destroy Iran's nuclear program. That has not happened as of yet. It has not happened. This could create either an opportunity for or a threat to American interests with regard to Iran and the broader Middle East. It could constitute an opportunity and thus a possible policy option if the United States would like to see Iran's nuclear program destroyed but prefers not to do it itself. It could be a threat if the United States believes that an Israeli attack would destabilize the region and would not advance or would harm American interests in relation to Iran. I would state here that it would actually destabilize the region. This would destabilize the region. So the Israeli strikes on Iran have destabilized the region. Remember, if there is nuclear fallout in Iran, and remember, Benjamin Netanyahu is a psychopath. If this satanic psychopath decided to bomb the nuclear facilities, there could be a potential nuclear leak in that region which could spread to the UAE and Saudi Arabia, which the British embassy is warning its citizens within Saudi Arabia today and within the UAE to leave in case of the possibility of a nuclear leak. So these psychopaths do not have limits in what they target. So what is mentioned with so much uncertainty in its strategic risk assessment, why would America pursue this option? This is the critical question. That if there is possible risk, why would the United States of America follow such a policy? In this case, an added element could be that the United States would encourage and perhaps even assist the Israelis in conducting the strikes themselves, in the expectation that both international criticism and Iranian retaliation, would be deflected away from the United States and onto Israel. So currently, as we speak, the policymakers, they understand this. So they allow and permit Netanyahu. Sometimes it seems that Netanyahu is uh, the second fiddle, and sometimes it seems Trump is the second fiddle. But as we stand, if there is deep criticism of Israel's actions because of the growing conflict, then the United States of America could easily fall back to blaming the policy of Israel. The logic behind this approach is that allowing Israel to mount the airstrikes rather than the United States provides a way out of the dilemma described in the previous chapter, whereby American airstrikes against Iran could become self-defeating because they would undermine every other American initiative in the Middle East, an outcome exactly the opposite of what new Iran policy is meant to accomplish. So, for the time being, Donald Trump, he plays with the policy options. He has all these 9 options. This is why we have him fumbling from one policy to another. Now, in a best case scenario, this paper that we are studying, what did it imagine an Israeli airstrike on Iran would achieve? So that is a question that this paper, which is Which Way to Persia, and of course many of you, I believe, would be looking for this paper now online. Unfortunately, there is someone asking the question saying, I purchased your book, Navigating the End of Time, and the language was too difficult and I returned the book. Unfortunately, my books are not difficult to understand. They are written in standard English. I speak standard English, and I would say that you need to increase your literacy if you find that level of writing as being too complicated. So, in a best case scenario, let's see what this paper envisaged. So, what all of this means is that realistically, an Israeli strike against Iran could consist of no more than 125 Israeli F-15 and F-16 sorties with limited weapons loads because of the distance, backed by a small number of cruise missile shots. This is not a meaningless force, and it likely could do a considerable amount of damage to the best known of Iran's facilities. That has not happened as of yet. And when, at that time, this policy was written, it was before the Syrian revolution. Currently, as we speak, Israeli jets are fueling in Syrian airspace. But again, it probably could not do as much damage as even the limited American airstrikes option discussed in the previous chapter. It probably would not even be able to cover all the targets listed. Moreover, the IAF would have virtually no capability to conduct opportunity strikes on targets revealed by Iranian actions during the attacks themselves. So the next part is worth paying attention to. Nor would it have much, if any, ability to follow up with the repeat strikes to hit facilities where the initial attack failed to destroy the target overall. An Israeli strike would be even less likely to meaningfully set back the Iranian nuclear program than would an American air campaign. So this is important. Towards the end, they liken an Israeli strike to an American air campaign. So utilizing the Israelis as a proxy to take out the nuclear facilities. And we know that if America does use its bombers that it has at its disposal that can take out the Earth's crust and reach the basement of the nuclear programs, there is always the possibility of a leak, a nuclear leak in the region. And that's a catastrophe for everyone in the region. But it could also lead to Iran keeping everyone hijacked at the Strait of Hormuz, as well as striking military bases in the region. Remember, all the Arab countries are compromised. So someone asks the question, they ask, why Iranians, despite being more secular and oppose their regime, are not falling for Western liberation bait, while Arabs fell for it so easily? Because the Iranians are not thinking with their emotions. The Iranians are not thinking with their emotions. While the Arabs, unfortunately, not all the Arabs, but many of the Arabs, they fall into sectarian propaganda against one another. They have divided amongst themselves due to sectarian propaganda, and they did not envisage the long-term goals for the region. So the Persians have not fallen for the propaganda of the Western propaganda machine. Someone else asks, USA supports Israel because it destabilizes Arabs. America destabilizes all potential rivals with proxies. Russia, Ukraine, India, Pakistan, China, Taiwan. Now, here, what were America's options? What were America's options? So, firstly, they divide this into three parts. They have the green light, they have the yellow light, and the red light. So, the green light, the first option, is for the United States to give Israel a green light, permitting Israel to transit American-controlled airspace over Iraq. Now remember, the airspace over Iraq does not only belong to the Americans. The Americans also have the airspace over Jordan and Syria, currently as we speak. So the United States would coordinate with Israel beforehand on how to manage the consequences of an attack, including Iranian retaliation and the regional and international political fallout. So as we speak, logistically, America supports the Israeli attack by giving airspace, and in recent news, the Americans have brought their ships closer to the Mediterranean, into the Mediterranean or other parts of that region, in order to counter Iranian ballistic missiles. So the yellow light option, the second option, is for the United States to give Israel a yellow light, encouraging Israel to mount the attack, but not permit it to use Iraqi airspace. That has not happened. So currently, as we speak, the green light option is occurring. The virtues of this scenario would be the same as with the green light, with the added benefit that the diplomatic fallout for the United States might be mitigated, since it could claim it had no advance warning, or that it did and even tried to prevent the attack by closing off Iraq's airspace. The drawback to this option is that many, especially Iran, might still believe that the United States was complicit in the operation, thus making US troops in the region vulnerable to retaliatory strikes by Iran. Now, this second option is not the option that was actually carried out. The option that was carried out is the green light. So the green light option has been carried out, yet Iran has not attacked United States of America troops, because Iran is not there to provoke war. Iran has not provoked this war. So if America has direct involvement in terms of utilizing American weapons and American troops. The third option, which is a red light, a third option would be for the United States to give Israel a red light, actively discouraging an Israeli attack, either because Washington had decided that it could carry out the attack more effectively and with fewer political complications on its own, or because it determines that the likely costs of a military attack by either the United States or Israel outweigh the potential benefits. The rationale for saying no will determine the pluses and minuses of the red light option. Now, this explains to us why the President of the United States, Donald Trump, he states different things at different times. So at one point he may seem as if he is taking the red light, sometimes the yellow light, and now currently the green light. He switches his options because this is what the policymakers are presenting to him. Now, someone asks the question, what's your opinion as to what Adnan Rashid thinks about this topic? I have not looked into what Adnan Rashid has stated with regard to this particular topic, but remember one thing with regard to Syria. If people say that the Syrians had a genocide because of Iran's policy of furthering Shiaism in Syria, I would say the wording is incorrect. Iran wrongly supported Bashar al-Assad. Its policy in Syria to support Bashar al-Assad was a mistaken policy in the region. And any war crimes that were carried out by Iranian militias or Hezbollah or any militias, those war crimes should be taken to account like any war crimes carried out by any other militias. No one supports the war crimes carried out by Iran or by its proxies in the region against the Syrian people. That should be made unequivocally very clear. But to term it a Sunni genocide because the population, majority of the population is Sunni, is a false dichotomy, because the people who were on the side of Bashar al-Assad, the majority of them were also Sunnis. In its essence, it was a war for a regime change. And the main culprit of that regime were the Ba'athist operatives of the regime of Bashar al-Assad, the Ba'athist ideology, because of the crimes that they committed in terms of the mukhabarat, the secret police. But an assessment needs to be made of all of that, and that is not done in an emotive manner. It's done through a critical manner, as we are doing now with regard to this this policy of the United States of America toward Iran. So let's analyze the following. Someone asks with regard to Tucker Carlson interview. We will go into the Tucker Carlson interview shortly. What is America and Israel's failures when studied in light of this paper in this current war? So someone says, Sheikh, another point was made was when Bashar was in power. The person asks, you never mentioned the hadith about Sham being corrupt and only when Jolani came into power. Additionally, people are saying, what about the Abdal? My response to that is very clear. The hadith which mentions إِذَا فَسَدَ أَهْلُ الشَّامِ, when the people of Asham become corrupt, I said normalization with Israel is the corruption. This is what I said. As for the regime, the people of Sham, there are two things. One is, if the people willingly normalize with Israel, then they have fallen into corruption. But if that position is forced upon them, then they are not in corruption. So the people who support Jawlani need to make that very clear. Is normalization with Israel being imposed on the people of Sham, the civilians, or are the people happily normalizing with Israel? As with regard to the Abdal were there when Bashar was in charge. The Abdal are there now when Jawlani is in charge. That means the Abdal do not approve of any wrong. But remember one thing, 500,000 plus Syrians died in the civil war, according to some statistics. They died for a free Syria. Now that you have a free Syria, you must tolerate freedom of expression and criticism of the current government. If you curtail and silence criticism of the current government, then that means you fall back into a regime that curtails and silences an opposing opinion. All I am doing is proposing an oppositional position to the current government. Now, will the current government become a regime that imposes no freedom of speech on the people like Bashar al-Assad? Will they carry out the same types of crimes like they did now with Mufti Ahmed Hassoun, the former Mufti Ahmed Hassoun, who has been taken to prison and from what I hear now was beaten up and his face cut up. His face has been cut up. Currently he's in hospital. Now, irrelevant to what Ahmed Hassoun may be, Ahmed Hassoun should have faced a fair trial according to the laws of Islam. He does not deserve for his face to be cut up. That's not permissible in Islamic law. Even if we have Benjamin Netanyahu as a prisoner of war, it's not permissible to torture him. No one would be allowed to torture him. He would be given food, he would be looked after, and he would face a fair trial. It would be haram for someone to torture the worst human being like Benjamin Netanyahu. So why would it be permissible for someone to beat up and cut the face of a person who is from the opposition? So that is my response to those people. If you attempt to silence my criticism, you are falling into what Bashar al-Assad opposed on the people, which was they cannot have a freedom of speech. They cannot speak and criticize the current government in its policies. Someone asks, so here as we carry on with this policy paper, inshallah ta'ala, we will have a Q&A shortly after we go over this policy paper. Number one, America had only anticipated to adopt a singular policy in a linear fashion from the 9 proposals. It hadn't considered the possibility of being compelled to consider multiple approaches and an expedited turnaround. That means that America had 9 options, but they only actually, from those options, they only expected to carry out one option. Currently, as we speak, Donald Trump keeps fumbling because he shifts from all these options, from one option to another. Number 2, mixed messaging from Trump suggests he either genuinely had no prior knowledge of the imminence of the Israeli attack, or B, had knowledge and gave the red light, but was entirely ignored by BIBI, thus undermining, perhaps forever, his posturing as a political hardman, placing the entirety of Western diplomacy and foreign policy at critical crossroads. Or third option, gave the green light according to some news outlets, but had hopes that he would quickly be able to leverage an isolated strike to get Iran to the negotiating table. I think it's the third option. He thought that they will carry out the strike and then he will be able to bring Iran to the negotiating table. So this tells us that no one actually has control of anything. None of the governments actually So this would knock down conspiracy theorists who believe uh, people actually control every event. What October 7th and the current Iranian strikes have demonstrated is that there is no oligarchy that actually controls everything in the world, and that the IDF is not an invincible army. Mossad does not have cutting edge technology, as David Icke would want us to believe. He believes they have cutting edge technology, and therefore October the 7th is a conspiracy. What has happened is that IDF and Mossad have shown that they do not have cutting edge technology. They can be overthrown. In fact, they could be overthrown within the next 10 days if the Muslims had a willingness and the ability, meaning if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them the ability to do so, that if Iran continuously striked Tel Aviv, within the next 10 days, masses of Muslims could enter into occupied Palestine and take the land back. If the king of tomatoes, Malikul Bandura, king of Jordan, opened up his borders, if the Syrian regime, the current Syrian government, allowed people to enter across the border, if Lebanon opened up its borders, if Turkey opened up its borders, and of course, if Sisi opened up his borders, then what would happen? Thousands would enter into Al Masjid al Aqsa, and Al Masjid al Aqsa would be free within the next 10 days. But currently, as we speak, those governments are contained, those borders have been contained, but the Iron Dome is down. So then we observe some additional policy changes. One of them, Trump announced that he gave the green light to the US attacks on Iran whilst withholding the final order. This disturbs every chronology that forecasted potential US intervention in Iran, causing a fallout amongst US officials and hasty and irrational emergency policy in the face of a rapidly failing Trump popularity campaign. So as we speak, Trump, his popularity has fallen as the peacemaking president. He's confused in his policies. Remember the hawks behind the scenes. There are many Americans who are from the neocon cloth, who have been cut from the neocon cloth. Trump is being pulled from every side, and he attempts to take control of the situation, but in the long term, he has demonstrated that he actually has no control of the situation. Fourthly, the American population is disproportionately against US intervention in Iran. Trump intimated that an Iranian cell could potentially execute a terrorist attack on US soil, which is of course false. American bases could be targeted and American lives lost, but it did not elicit the hoped reaction from the American public. Building public tolerance was a critical first step before military intervention. So that was not done. Why? Because events are moving too quick. In previous times, events would take time. You would hear about an event every so often. But in the current times that we live in, we have events every day. Every day. This is the Ashratu Sa'a, like a necklace of pearls. You cut off the string, the pearls fall consecutively, one after the other. That is the time that we live in. Someone asks the question, was Imran Khan jailed in a joint PAC US effort to remove the final barrier to Israel's actions and broader regional objectives? The answer is no. Imran Khan was jailed because the different political parties of Pakistan disdained the man, and they utilized parliament to outvote Imran Khan and then eventually have him jailed. It was not a conspiracy of any sort. It was because Imran Khan had jailed Maryam Nawaz, and this, of course, hurt the establishment of Pakistan. He jailed many of the high-ranking officials of those parties and filed cases of corruption against them, and that was not tolerated by the Pakistani elite. It has nothing to do with Israel. It has nothing to do with Israel. Of course, there was the journalist by the name of Luqman who appeared on Israeli TV, what they refer to as Israel. He appeared on Israeli TV, and he did say that Imran Khan refused to be the fall man, the fall guy for recognition of Israel. He refused. That has been mentioned by some people who are close to Imran Khan. So, someone asks, what do you say about Pakistani Chief Asim Munir then? I would say, Asim Munir, you did a superb job against the Modi attack on Pakistan's sovereignty, and it would be nice, General Asim Munir, that you take military action against Israel. Now let me tell you something, that General Asim Munir and others of the ISI and other intelligence services across the Muslim world must realize that their intelligence services have been compromised with Israeli technology. So Israeli technology, which spyware, and which tracks down the phone calls of the population, much of that technology has been integrated into the intelligence services of Pakistan, ISI, as well as other Middle Eastern countries. So Pakistan must be very careful of utilizing Israeli technology or Mossad technology. That is something important for Asim Munir and ISI intelligence officers to take note of. Now, I had mentioned in my book Intellectual Intifada that if Pakistan had placed troops within the West Bank as a peacekeeping force, 500 Pakistani troops entered into the West Bank as peacekeeping troops, that would have been a game changer. I mentioned this before October the 7th. But of course, the situation has changed. And remember one thing with Pakistan. Pakistan has a border with Balochistan and Iran. So Balochistan is bordering Iran. So Pakistan has its very deep security concerns. And my position is very consistent. I believe in the security of all Muslim nations. So even if I criticize a Muslim regime or a government, we believe in peace in Muslim countries. So even in Syria, no one should call for the overthrow of Jolani because it leads to bloodshed. Syria needs peace. It does not need more bloodshed. Similarly in other countries. But those countries must be pressured, those that have the military capability, to engage and support those who are fighting the state, what is referred to as the State of Israel. Now someone asks, do you think the Afghan Taliban will get involved? Not at the current stage. Not at the current stage. The Taliban will not involve itself at the current stage. But if Iran is destabilized, then you remember Iran has borders with Iraq, it has borders with Afghanistan and Pakistan, and that would be dangerous for the United States to destabilize Iran. So there are a few additional points. Both US and Israel massively underestimated Iranian military capability and national resolve. So the Iranian military was underestimated, as we have observed in the rocket strikes in the past few days. They have destabilized what is referred to as Israel, to the point that the Jewish supremacist state has jailed people for more than 2 years for making videos of the destruction. This is why not many videos are appearing that demonstrate the destruction that is occurring in Tel Aviv. Many of the Jewish people, settlers, illegal settlers, all of them are illegal, they are going to the coast to take boats, paying thousands of dollars to take boats to Cyprus. Flights are not leaving Tel Aviv. They are not leaving what is referred to as Israel. Someone asked, Sheikh, can you speak on the Samson option? Samson option is very simply that when the Israeli military feel that they are coming to an end, they go onto self-destruct. And they refer to it as the Samson option, Shim'un, because of what is mentioned in the Old Testament when he destroyed the building, destroying his enemies and himself, according to the Old Testament. That is the Samson option. So as we speak, they are running into bomb shelters. Thousands of these occupiers are homeless. The destruction that they carried out in Gaza is being carried out currently in what is referred to as Tel Aviv. That destruction is being carried out. So while we are observing this, the hospital that was bombed, everything that Benjamin Netanyahu and Gallant and Ben Gavia and others, everything they have said regarding Hamas is truthful regarding themselves. So they claimed Hamas beheads children. It turns out that the IDF, Jewish supremacists, behead children. They kill children. They claimed Hamas rapes. It turns out that the IDF, the Jewish soldiers, not only rape, that the Jewish supremacist population of what is referred to as Israel, they not only rape Palestinians, they support the rapists. Everything they claimed about Hamas, that it stores weapons in hospitals, turns out true. For the IDF, they store weapons in their hospitals. So when Iran legitimately targeted military sites in Tel Aviv, it turns out that Benjamin Netanyahu and his cohorts, they actually store weapons in those hospitals and schools. So whatever you read from the Western media and from idiots, morons like Piers Morgan, remember that what these idiots claim, the idiot especially Piers Morgan, he goes for the high, he's a pimp. In fact, he's a prostitute. He goes for the highest bidder, whoever pays him the most. He's a good example of a prostitute. He goes to the highest bidder. So he changes his opinion according to who pays him the most. So everything you read from and hear from them, remember what they claim regarding Hamas, it turns out it is true regarding the Jewish supremacists. So here, a last-ditch attempt at trying to execute a lighter approach alongside Israeli airstrikes, i.e. calling upon the Iranian population to overthrow their regime. Iran has always had its own conception of a Persianized modernity. So this answers the question, why were they unable to overthrow Iran from within? Because Iran has always had its concept of a Persianized modernity. It has never pined for the importation of American modernity and culture. Unlike the Arabs, you go to Morocco, they love their McDonald's. You go to Qatar, they think McDonald's is like a high-end restaurant. Like even in Pakistan, there are some people from the upper classes, in economically upper classes, that they think going to McDonald's is like eating from a good restaurant. When here in England, it's the working class that goes to McDonald's for a cheap meal, 5.99 burger meals and all this cheap food. But unfortunately, in the Middle East, you have lines and lines of people lining up for McDonald's as if McDonald's is some excellent French cuisine. That is the type of modernity that Arabs and Pakistanis and Indians and Indonesians and Malaysians have fallen for. But the Persians, they have their own concept of modernity. It's a Persianized modernity. So this issue transcends Shia Sunni. It also goes into cultural values. It has never what is mentioned. It has never pined for the importation of American modernity and culture, unlike some of its regional neighbors. The Iranian public, religious and otherwise, have all shown solidarity in this war. So the solidarity must be shown by all Muslims. And unfortunately, there are people, even in when they go to Mecca al-Mukarramah and al-Madinah al-Munawwarah, there are so many people, what they do is they buy from McDonald's. We Muslims from Britain, remember many times I'm referring to British or Anglosphere Muslims, people who speak the English language, I'm addressing you, that we should boycott these Western corporations whenever we go out to Umrah. Someone asks the question, Sheikh, should we establish Sharia law in the UK? I would want to answer you that all these pedophiles that are actually guilty of pedophilia, the Sharia law should be applied on them. So all these grooming gangs, why don't they apply strict punishment on those grooming gangs, on those pedophiles? Nevertheless, now some people asked with regard to Tucker Carlson, and famously pro-Trump public figures expressed their outright disapproval of Trump's actions after this war. For instance, Tucker Carlson, so a day after Israel launched its attack on Iran, former Fox News host Tucker Carlson wrote a newsletter titled An Act of War Sponsored by the United States, and talked about his objections with former Trump advisor Steve Bannon on Bannon's War Room podcast. Trump fired back at Carlson on Monday evening, writing on Truth Social, somebody please explain to Cookie Tucker Carlson that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. In a podcast with Senator Ted Cruz, Carlson exposed Senator Cruz's patent ignorance on Iran. So he asked him, tell me the ethnic makeup of Iran, tell me what is the population of Iran, tell me the population of Tehran, and he was unable to respond to that. So, and goaded a confession out of him, suggesting that the US had already struck Iran. One of Trump's closest congressional allies, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, also quickly came to Carlson's defense. Tucker Carlson is one of my favorite people, she posted on X. Foreign wars, intervention, regime change, put America last, kill innocent people, are making us broke, and will ultimately lead to our destruction. That's not kooky. So, and that is what we tell everyone here, that war will not benefit anyone. Meaning that if you support war abroad, then you are only undermining your own countries and the tax money that you pay. The national debt. Every year we pay just the interest on the national debt. And taxes are increasing while services are decreasing, like the NHS. and other vital services. This is absolutely essential for our people to understand within the UK. Across the UK, council workers, they should know that vital money is being spent on weapons. Vital money is being spent on wars abroad. Vital taxpayers' money is not being spent on the population. Instead, it is being spent abroad and being squandered to support Jewish supremacism. This is something what they will never tell you on Sky News. This is why they will never have people like me on Sky News to tell you that, to inform you of that. This is why the BBC and Sky News would evade an interview. This is why Piers Morgan would evade an interview, because these type of facts are mentioned. So there was also a notorious African American MAGA hat wearing political commentator Candace Owens tweeted, "Donald Trump just completely fractured his base. Truly unbelievable." So also we have the notorious Alex Jones. If you are familiar of this conspiracy nut known as Alex Jones, discredited, of course, after the shootings that happened in the United States of America. He referred to a school shooting. He referred to the entire shooting as a hoax, and then he was taken to court and he had to retract. Nevertheless, he was a supporter of Donald Trump. He's a host of InfoWars. And he has a history of spreading conspiracy theories. Posted later in the evening, Trump attacking at Tucker Carlson for not supporting a new world war is not something any sane person should support. This is the stuff nightmares are made of. And Dave Smith, a comedian and podcaster who previously supported Trump's plan to end forever wars and who became popular recently for his debate with the Zionist apologist Douglas Murray on the Joe Rogan podcast, said, "I supported him last year." Smith said, "I apologize for doing so. It was a bad calculation. At the time, it seemed like the right one. He should be impeached and removed." Smith also called for Trump's supporters to turn on him. And by the way, a famous actor, Robert De Niro, is also very anti-Trump. He in fact refers to Trump as a gangster. So what did Trump actually promise the nation? Before we go on to that, we have a few things to look at. We have what did Trump actually promise the nation, and we have further insights with regard to US-Israeli strategy papers and further insights from US-Israeli strategy papers. Before we do that, I will be taking some of your questions. Please post your questions. I will be taking your questions and answering some of them. Someone asks, recently came across a hadith. Please explain. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Dajjal would be followed by 70,000 Jews of Isfahan, Iranian region, wearing Persian shawls. I already answered this, that is at the time of a Dajjal. There will be a migration back to Isfahan. There is a Jewish population in Isfahan. The situation at that time will be totally different, and there will be Isfahani Jews who will follow a Dajjal. Someone asks, would you encourage the Muslim populations to overthrow their Muslim leaders that are not doing anything in regard to helping the Ummah? The answer is no, because it leads to more bloodshed. That was my actual position on Syria. So these people who are falsely claiming that I am an Assadist, they should know I am consistent. I do not call for the overthrow of any regime because it leads to more bloodshed. Tens and thousands of Muslims die. In fact, hundreds and thousands have died in the past. The Algerian civil war in the early 1990s. The thousands that died after the coup of Abdul Fattah al-Sisi against the late al-Mursi rahimahullah. Someone asks, is it true the Euphrates gold will not appear until the entire river dries by 2014? The answer is no. The hadith does not mention the entire river drying. It refers to the river receding. So it can happen at any time. Sheikh, do you think Muslims in the West should work on making each other successful, such as the Jews? The answer is yes, of course. What do you think of the arrest and charging of Ahmad Yaqub for money laundering? Well, it's gone to court and let the courts decide. That will be decided by the courts. And remember, because he stood as possible MP, they brought out a past case prior to him having standed for MP. Do you consider before the emergence of Dajjal, the Zionists will have to establish the promised land from the Quran and Hadith? This is a common misnomer. The answer is no. I believe the current state will be dismantled. They will not be able to last. Do not think that this current occupation will remain. Many want Iran destroyed due to what they did in Iraq and Syria. But these same people justify what the Saudi did in Yemen and are silent on this. Remember, if Saudi Arabia bombed Tel Aviv, we are all behind Saudi Arabia. If Turkey bombed Tel Aviv, we are all behind Turkey. If Pakistan bombed Tel Aviv, we are all behind Pakistan. If Egypt bombed Tel Aviv, we are behind Egypt. And when Iran bombs Tel Aviv, we are all behind Iran. It is only my position where you will find consistency. There is consistency in the position. I am not being sectarian in choosing one regime over the other. Someone asks, who do you think is the greatest Pakistani Prime Minister in your opinion? My response to you is, the greatest Pakistani Prime Minister is the one who bombs Tel Aviv. When he appears, let me know. So, someone asks, my question isn't it bad that Iran also unfortunately killed non-combatants in the occupied territory? Firstly, Iran officially does not target civilians. Officially does not target civilians. But the targets that it has made, meaning it carried out an attack on a hospital and a school where there is military bases for the IDF. personally, I believe that there should be no presence of those people in that occupied land except as citizens of a free Palestine. So those who choose to live in occupied Palestine should be living under a Palestinian authority, not under the current Jewish supremacist ideology. So those people you refer to as citizens are actually those people that you mentioned. They are actually ideologues who believe in a Jewish supremacism in the region. Those people that you refer to as Israeli citizens. So just before we conclude for the next Q&A, what I wanted to mention is, what did Trump really promise the nation? So Donald Trump, he made many promises. So someone is mentioning that there are rumors online and a conspiracy theory that if Trump doesn't comply with the Israelis, they would assassinate him like they did with John Kennedy, because JF Kennedy, because they need a president that will do their bidding, like Biden and Bush. And that's a conspiracy theory, perhaps forwarded by Trump supporters. Others have mentioned Pakistan has recommended Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. Now, either Pakistan is doing that out of a jest to make a mockery of Donald Trump, and if they are not, then they are only going to make a mockery of themselves. So remember, Hitler was proposed for a Nobel Peace Prize in 1939, and it was a mockery. Whoever proposed that at the time was actually making a mockery of Hitler. Now, unless the Pakistanis, their humor is so deep and they are doing that, I would think they are making a mockery. Anyone who knows anything of Punjabi humor or Pakistani humor in general, they would know that they would do something of that nature. So, what did Trump really promise the nation? Since October the 7th, Americans across the political spectrum have voiced their grievances with American subservience to Israel and Israeli-backed Jewish lobbies like AIPAC. Many felt Trump's American first philosophy was the only remedy, which is not Trump's at all. So we must remember, this American first policy is not actually Trump's mind child at all, but was founded as the America First Committee in 1940 by Robert Douglas Jr. as a pressure group against US entry into World War II. So interestingly, the committee had a reputation of being notoriously anti-Semitic, so-called anti-Semitic, because they are not Semitic, most of them, with many of its speakers often calling for the prevention of undesirables. Now, what do they mean by undesirables? Like Jews into America, and accusing Jews of being war agitators. So this term, this should be made into common knowledge, that the term America First was not actually coined by Donald Trump. It was coined in 1940 by Robert Douglas Jr., who was a so-called anti-Semitic, who referred to Jews as undesirables. That should be made common knowledge amongst everyone. And then Trump never hid his unrelenting support for Israel through his campaign. The 2024 GOP platform, officially titled Make America Great Again, adopted at the Republican National Committee in July 2024 under Trump's direct influence, clearly states Republicans will strengthen alliances by ensuring that our allies must meet their obligations to invest in our common defense and by restoring peace to Europe. We will stand with Israel and seek peace in the Middle East. This is their peace. We will rebuild our alliance network in the region to ensure a future of peace, stability, and prosperity. Likewise, we will champion strong, sovereign, and independent nations in the Indo-Pacific, thriving in peace and commerce with others. Of course, none of that has been carried out in the past 6 months. So that was what Donald Trump promised in terms of America first. Now, with regard to further insights in terms of US and Israeli strategy papers, so some beneficial reading for people is The Logic of Israel's Actions to Contain Iran in Syria and Lebanon. This was written on the September 16th, 2018 by Major General Yoachav Amidro. And he argues that Israel must present Iran's entrenchment via proxies in Syria and Lebanon, as well as recommends forceful strikes to disrupt missile and nuclear pathways to Hezbollah, and directly positions Israel's Syria strikes as part of broader anti-Iran campaign. And then you have another paper written as Southern Syria, How to Stop the Iranian Plan for Regional Dominance. This was written in autumn 2017. Now, Gary Swift, you have written Britain first, and you are correct. Britain should look at Britain first. British taxpayer money should not be utilized abroad for wars and for Jewish supremacism. It should be utilized to support British taxpayers and the vulnerable in Britain, the British population, rather than leaving and abandoning the British people. So there is a misguided policy of policy makers who control the finance of Britain, and they misguide the British public through propaganda. So this paper written by Michael Herzog, written by an ex-IDF strategist on de-escalation zones in southern Syria. He wrote this in 2017. What does he write? He highlights Israel's concern over Iranian influence and control of water-rich Golan Heights. So that is what they have taken, the Golan Heights. And he argues for buffer zones are essential to prevent Iran from gaining secure footholds near Israel. And that is what has been achieved. Remember, just go and check the spy, Eli Cohen, and the dossier that was given by the Jolani. After the Jolani takeover, Jolani gave the dossier, a 2,000-page dossier, as a gift to Israel in December. In last December gone, he passed on a 2,000-page document as a peace token to Israel of a famous so-called Israeli spy that spied on Syria, and he was caught in 1965 before the Assad regime. He was sentenced to death. His remains were hidden by the Syrian government in the 1960s. There was a national secret document, 2,000 pages, that was kept, meaning it's a national, it belongs to the Syrian people, but it was handed over by Jawlani to Benjamin Netanyahu as a peace token. And this Eli Cohen was he was instructive to so-called Israel in the 1967 war, when Israel took the Golden Heights, because he had infiltrated the Syrian government in the 1960s because he was an Arab Jew. He was born in Egypt. He infiltrated the government. He had them plant trees across the Golan Heights so the Israeli pilots knew what to bomb, what sites to bomb. And then in 2007, Tayyip Erdogan, who many of people still trust, unfortunately, he requested the Syrian government in 2007 to give the remains. Remember, Erdogan plays the broker, to give the remains of Eli Cohen back to so-called Israel. At the time, the Syrian government refused. But now they have given the 2,000-page document. You can check all of this online. But remember, Tayyip Erdogan also attempted to be the broker now between Iran and Israel. Someone should ask this Tayyip Erdogan that you are willing to be a broker for Israel to stop Tel Aviv from being bombed. Why haven't you become a broker for Hamas to bring about a ceasefire? You're willing to be a broker for Tel Aviv and ringing Iran. He rang the Iranian leadership to be a broker. Why doesn't he ring Benjamin Netanyahu and say, let me broker a ceasefire? And then, of course, we know that there is the connection between oil coming through Turkey from Azerbaijan, which has not been disconnected. High percentage of that oil is utilized by the IDF, yet Turkey has not cut off that oil during the genocide. So we would say that the Turkish leadership is compromised. There is also, and remember, the water in the region is vital. So Israel controlling 40% of Syria's water, and then remember that there will be some type of dirty play of Israel at the Euphrates River. Playing with fire, patterns of Iranian-Israeli military confrontation. This was written in June 2024. And this analyzes recurring confrontations, illustrating Israel's escalation logic rooted in deterrence doctrine, places airstrikes in Syria and potential strikes on Iran within a continuum of militarized containment, and frames Iranian entrenchment and Israel's response through the Iron Wall and Dahiya doctrines. So these are important papers for people to research and read. I'll mention three more and then we will open up for questions and answers. So, Israel's strategic shift directly targeting Iran after Damascus assassination. This was written April the 8th, 2024 by David M. Weinberg. And it advocates Israel's transition from proxy-based response to direct strikes on Iran itself. And that is exactly what has occurred. Also, we will be talking about Iran's army, their weapons, and where they are made, and who might they help. So we'll be looking at Al Jazeera's comparison between the also, someone has mentioned to me that the reason why Pakistan proposed a Nobel Peace Prize is because Indian propaganda, they did this actually to agitate the Indians because of the peace he brought by bringing supposedly the ceasefire between India and Pakistan. So it's them doing this in jest. This is from someone who is attempting to present a reason. Also, I would like to mention that Israel, so-called Israel, has killed over 76 Palestinians in attacks across the Gaza Strip since dawn today. On average, this monstrous criminal regime, Jewish supremacists, Nazis, they are killing on average 100 Palestinians daily. And these USA food deliveries have become places to slaughter Palestinians. So, what this Israel strategic shift states, this paper, is it justifies assassination and bombing campaigns as responses to Iranian destabilization efforts via Syria. So assassinations have been a regular occurrence. So we've had the assassination of top leadership within the Palestinian resistance movement and within the Iranian government. And it emphasizes piercing Iran's Shia land bridge across Iraq and Syria. So that means what they refer to as a Shia land bridge was where the militias could enter from Iran into Iraq, because the United States of America does not actually control Iraq effectively enough. They may have military bases, but they do not control many of the tribesmen. So what else is mentioned is that Hezbollah's defeat and Iran's strategic depth doctrine, which is an issue brief, April 13th, 2025. What this mentions, it assesses how weakening Hezbollah and Assad undermines Iran's regional depth. And of course, that policy has been carried out. Hezbollah, the efficiency of Hezbollah has been decreased. But since the Iron Dome is ineffective at the moment, it takes other powers across the region now, if they volley or lobby in rockets, all these rockets. And remember, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Innama al-harbu ar-ramyu." Indeed, warfare is throwing. And in that time it was arrows and catapults, and now it is rockets. So the rockets should be utilized to penetrate the occupied territories and to destroy their infrastructure and to leave nothing except for the Palestinians to take back their lands, and for the Lebanese to take back their lands, and for the Syrians to take back their lands. And in fact, Lebanon, Palestine, and Syria should all be one nation. This is all greater Syria, and in fact, they should also, meaning Jordan. All of this should be one region. All of this is one Biladu Sham. So, additionally, it posits Israel's strikes aim to sever Iran's supply lines to proxies. So recently, what has occurred is that arms that were being taken to Lebanon were seized by the current Syrian government. So arms that are being delivered to Lebanon the supply line has been cut off. So additionally, there is another paper, Beyond Proxies, Iran's Deeper Strategy in Syria and Lebanon. This was written in 2023. And it mentions evaluating Iranian forward defense embedding in Syria and Lebanon, describes how Israel's offensive against Iran's axis fits broader regional destabilization. And it mentions control of resources, including water infrastructure, as leverage in power plays. So that is the leverage that they actually have in the region. So what we observe now, we have covered why Donald Trump is fumbling in his foreign policy. And by the way, as we speak, there are red alerts in Tel Aviv. Rockets are entering right now. And remember, much of the footage is blocked by mainstream media. Of course, the people in Lebanon, in Jordan, in Syria, in Gaza, in Al-Dafatul Gharbiya, the West Bank, uh, they are all celebrating, and Mubarak to them with regard to what is happening. Um, so Mubarak to all the Lebanese who are on our chat also, and remember that the weakening of Tel Aviv entails the takeover of Palestine, inshallah ta'ala. Inshallah, we will open up now for questions and answers. Send in your questions, and this would be so someone says, Sheikh, can you talk a bit about Al-Yamani and Khurasani before the rule of Al-Imam al-Mahdi? So the Khurasani is in reference to a fighting force that appears from the region of Khurasan, which is western Afghanistan and eastern Iran. So the Khurasani has not appeared yet. He will appear in the time of Al-Mahdi. As for the Yamani, he's someone who appears later, meaning not at the current time. Someone asks, is Sayyid Ali Khamenei the Khurasani prophesied in Hadith? The answer is no, he is not. And you should know the correct methodology. The correct methodology is that those signs have not actually occurred as of yet. Someone asks, is the belief in Dajjal a fundamental belief? Is one still a Muslim if he totally rejects the whole Dajjal concept, since it is not in the Quran and only in Hadith? With different Dajjals in each Hadith, the answer is it's mutawatir, mass transmitted. With regard to the specific Dajjal, it's mass transmitted, the Hadith. As someone says, can you talk about the Sufyani? I heard Saddam Hussein was a dress rehearsal before the Sufyani. Others say Bashar al-Assad is a dress rehearsal before the Sufyani. The Sufyani is a tyrant leader that appears after the gold of the Euphrates appears, and none of these signs have occurred as of yet. Someone asks, what to do with Isha during bright nights, and why do some people pray Fajr at around 1:15? Because the Fajr prayer, according to some, enters once the sun rises at 19 degrees depression, according to others at 18 degrees depression. And the persistent twilight makes the issue of the Isha an issue of ijtihad. Inshallah, in a future Q&A session, not on the live streams, but elsewhere, I will cover this in more detail. What is the view on nuclear weapons? In the past, I have spoken against nuclear weapons and nuclear proliferation. Pakistan has justified having nuclear weapons as a deterrent, and many will argue that if Iran actually did have the nuclear weapon, it would have been a deterrent from its sovereignty being attacked at this current moment. Someone asks, is the Qadiani debate cancelled? The answer is no, it will be going ahead. Someone asks, when the Dajjal arrives, will we see the fire? The answer is, when he arrives, you will know the kayfiyah, the modality. So there's a rule in ilmu akhir zaman or sharatu sa'a that the kayfiyah, the modality is known once it happens and occurs. So it has not happened prior to it occurring, it's conjecture. And this happens with many signs. Someone asks, I'm struggling with controlling my nafs. Any good books to recommend? Yes, Al Quranul Kareem. You are struggling to control your nafs, read Al Quranul Kareem in abundance. If you want to read on a book on how to control the nafs, then read Tajul Urus, Refinement of the Souls. It's in English also, by Ibn Ata'illah Al-Iskandari rahimullah. What you say about women outnumbering men 50 to 1 as a sign of Day of Judgment, that sign occurs in the Malhama al-Malhamatul Kubra within a specific region. So it's not referring to global population, it's referring to when a war occurs. After that war in that region, the women will outnumber the men 50 to 1. Someone asks, can we do tafsir of the Quran by using the Bible? The response to that is, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Hadithu an Bani Israel wala haraj." Narrate from Bani Israel, there is no haraj. What that means, as long as it does not contradict three things. One is Al Quranul Kareem. Number two is the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and number three is the mind, meaning the rational judgment. Someone asks, could the army from Khurasan be current Iranians because their ideology is supporting Al Imam al Mahdi? The answer is no, because the Khurasani appears after the first bay'ah to Al Imam al Mahdi, which happens in Mecca al Mukarramah. And that those circumstances have not occurred as of yet. They are to occur in the future. We are not living in that time. What is the current position on Dajjal? Is he chained on an island currently? And if so, does he have any communication with certain people on earth? Where there is the hadith in a Tabarani that he has walked in the markets and he has eaten food. Based on that, some have concluded that he does have communication. The brother states, I read Al Quranul Kareem every day and I have read that book you mentioned. Still struggling. Any more steps? The answer is yes. Eat halal food. It's perhaps your diet that you are struggling to learn self-control. This could be the lack of self-control, could be related to diet and company. What should Pakistan and other Muslim countries' stance be if America clearly gets involved directly? Well, they should all focus on Tel Aviv and bomb Tel Aviv with rockets. That should be the stance of Pakistan. If they do not take a firm stance against Israel, they will not survive. And I mentioned this when Imran Khan was in power. I said that he must take direct action for Al-Quds al-Sharif. And the same with Erdogan. Erdogan thinks every so often giving a speech will help him survive. Erdogan has become very irrelevant now. So his condemnations, they have no substance. But only by taking military action on Israel today, the Muslim world will gain its important role in, meaning its correct position in the international community. Someone asks, my question to you is, were you born in the UK? Yes, I was born in the UK. Someone asks, the people who are complaining about Iran at least be happy for Gaza. Someone else asks, the real Al Mahdi will be of the Ahl Sunnah wal Jamaat and not Salafi, Wahhabi, Deobandi, and Shia. That is correct. Al Mahdi will not be Wahhabi. This is our belief that he will be from Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. He will not be Shi'i. He will not be. And let me make something else clear. The leader of the Iranian government, Ali al Khamenei, has made it illegal for anyone to curse any Sahabi in that country. It's illegal. The official position of the Iranian government is that the Quran is preserved and is not tampered. You cannot curse Aisha radiallahu anha, and it's illegal to do so. Similarly, it's illegal to curse Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and Umar al-Faruq radiallahu anhuma. Similarly, that was the position of Hassan Nasrullah, not to curse any one of the Sahaba. Having said that, we believe Al-Imam al-Mahdi radiallahu anh will be from Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah and will not be from those who curse the Shaykhain or any Sahabi. Someone asks, why do you not debate Hassan al-Layari? Because I tend not to debate people who hide behind a screen, and to tell the truth, he's very irrelevant. He seems to be paid by some subverting forces, people who are funding the likes of Hassan al-Layari and the other individual from Kuwait who lives in the UK. They are being paid to cause schism between the Sunnis and the Shia. And in the current climate, it's not appropriate to entertain such individuals. Someone asks, can we do a tour of the Silk Road with you? The old route. Unfortunately, I'm not a tour guide. Which journey I would. And by the way, there are direct impacts on Tel Aviv as we speak right now. This is freshly in. As we speak, there have been direct impacts on what they refer to as Tel Aviv. So many of you can tune into that. If a person insults Sayyiduna Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu an, is he a kafir? The answer is that the books of fiqh mention that he is a kafir. The Hanafi fiqh books mention that. And such a person, his iman cannot be trusted. How can you curse any of the Sahaba? Someone asks, you start your lectures and you say Tibbil qulubi wa dawa'iha. What does that mean? The answer is, it means a cure to the hearts. Someone states, are tanks a better strategy in Tel Aviv as it can bulldoze through? The answer is, first you would need to utilize rockets to destroy the infrastructure, and then to take the ground, the rockets would need to take these occupiers away from their positions, their military posts. Once they abandon their military posts, then tanks and other things can enter, as well as a civilian population of the Palestinians and others. Someone asks, is the current Iran-Israel war mentioned in any hadith? As this is very significant in Islamic, they are fighting this criminal entity and standing against the injustice. In general, the huruba mentioned in general. So specifically Iran being mentioned, I am not aware of any such hadith. Someone asks, Sheikh, would you ever take a group to Palestine? I would say to you, once Palestine is free and we go to pray in Al Masjid Al Aqsa, perhaps I will take a group out of celebration to pray in Al Masjid Al Aqsa, inshallah, in the near future. Someone asks, can you talk about Ya'juj and Ma'juj? If you go through our live stream sessions, you will find a live stream online. Someone asks, are UK Iranians mostly Muslim or atheist secular? I do not know. I didn't carry out any census. Someone asks, have you heard the present British SAS whistleblower case? The answer is no. Someone asks tips for young people to increase emotional intelligence. Sheikh, did you see the Egyptian soldiers abusing the convoy to Gaza? How do these Muslim soldiers do things like this? Is it their training that makes them zombies following blindly? The answer is yes. Read on the Nazi doctors, how the Nazi doctors carried out various war crimes based on instructions. And similarly, it's not only the Nazis. You have from the killing fields in Cambodia and various military leaders in our near history have carried out various types of war crimes. And they do so out of a viciousness. So inshallah, this is the last few minutes. We will finish, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring about a victory inshallah very soon for the Muslims, and in the coming week a coordinated attempt by all Muslims to unite, to take Tel Aviv, to take Al-Quds al-Sharif, and the very minimum should be a moral and a mental victory for the Muslims, at the very minimum. But remember, we can maximize this. This can be maximized to its full potential. How can it be maximized? Is that Muslims should not underestimate their military prowess in the region, and to take back the land that belongs to the people of that region, meaning the land belongs to the descendants of the Sahaba who live in that land. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam wrote down a will for one of the Sahaba, Tamim ad-Dari radiallahu an. He wrote him a testament that the land belongs to you and your descendants. So, insha'Allah ta'ala, we should see a victory of our mindsets. Change our mindsets, unite on the common enemy, and I will be seeing you soon, insha'Allah ta'ala, in future lectures and future live streams. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.